For after images, it was important to us to show the audience how the artist works, which is, as so often in photography, the serial mode. The serial mode allows to approach a theme within a set of fixed parameters from very different perspectives and angles. It reminds us, in that sense, to a scientific experiment, and indeed, there is a strong historical proximity of photography to natural sciences, since photography has its foundations and origins in chemics and other natural histories, but we will hear in the course of the time about this. Since Thomas Ruff was once described as a scientific artist who in every new series questions the history of photography from anew, this connection fits very well. After Images starts with Ruff's most recent series, which is entitled Tableau Chinois, a series Ruff worked on since 2019. It fulfills the notion of images after images perfectly, but also for the reason of its content and thematic angle, we are very happy that we can premiere this series in Asia in the National Taiwan Museum of Fine Arts. In this series, Ruff is examining a type of political pictures, namely the propaganda image, which was used by all totalitarian regimes of the 20th century and certainly not only in China. In the opinion of the artist, though, the Chinese propaganda images were amongst the strongest and most seductive images of that kind, and this impression is certainly underlined by the fact that, according to the Life magazine in the early 70s, Mao was the most famous person in the world, which also brought artists such as, for example, Andy Warhol to work with images of the great leader. But let's look now in the technical production of Tableau Chinois. First, Thomas Ruff scans images he took from historical magazines the People's Republic of China has produced for foreign relations between the 1950s and 70s, but also coffee table books of Mao's life and the history of the great achievements of the Chinese Communist Party. From these sources, he chooses images like, of course, iconic pictures of Mao himself, but also other pictures describing life within the communist world, from the military to the sports to free time. In their color scale, they remind us to a bygone era of a sunken analog world. After scanning these historical images, Ruff is adding one, sometimes two digital pixelated layers of the same image over the first scan. A scan in which we still see the original grid from the offset printing. After doing layering, Ruff works like an archaeologist of his own creation. He erases parts of the digital layers so that the final print, the final large-scale print, shows a combination of both pixels and the printing grid, of foreground and background, of 20th and 21st century visual thinking and visual instruments. By integrating both the printing grid and the pixel of the digital image, this series integrates the gap between analog and digital photography. But of course, it also alludes to the history and the development of the Communist Party from a socialist communist economy into a state capitalism. From that sense, it opens many associations. First and foremost, the pixel stands, of course, in for the digital revolution, a revolution which connects the world beyond nation states. And most of us are using smartphones and other digital tools. And most of those tools are, of course, produced in China.